wanting to expand and expound upon the sanitized king, expound on the more radical king, the king who courageously stepped forward to espouse an unpopular message in 1967 when he broke silence to speak out against an unjust war. We look at Native Americans fighting to defend their land at Standing Rock. We look at oppressed and marginalized communities struggling against police oppression and violence and callous and immoral deportation policies of this administration. We witness the horrific specter of famine and starvation happening right now in Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and Nigeria. And so to this we say, it is more important than ever to redefine who we are as a society, and that we indeed undergo a radical revolution of values if we are to achieve anything at all resembling a truly just civilization.
We've been in perpetual war for decades now, and we're still dealing with a lot of the same issues that he was speaking out against them. And if we're not looking to our history, we're just bound to repeat the mistakes that we've made before. Throughout this program, we're going to hear from the words of Dr. Martin Luther King and the words of some amazing local leaders in Chicago on the front lines of the radical revolution of values.
We are all here for a purpose, and that purpose is to realize our God-given potential as individuals and as the communities that we comprise. We as individuals have a potential. We as a community have a potential. We as a city have a potential. As a state and as a nation, we have a potential. And our God-given purpose is to realize it. And King understood that poverty is the enemy of the realization of human potential. That militarism is the enemy of the realization of human potential. That racism is the enemy of the realization of human potential. And all of them had to be attacked as such. As progressives, oftentimes we like to defend what's right, but we have a hard time attacking what's wrong.
The Western arrogance of feeling that it has everything to teach others and nothing to learn from them is not just. A true revolution of values will lay hand on the world order and say of war, this way of settling differences is not just. This business of burning human beings with napalm, of filling our nation's homes with orphans and widows, of injecting poisonous drugs of hate into veins of people normally humane, of sending men home from bloody battlefields physically handicapped and psychologically deranged, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death.
It won't be long before these young people create a world culture that is not parochial but universal. Rooted in truth and shining with love, they are well underway in spreading the sort of love that Dr. King speaks of, a worldwide fellowship that lifts neighborly concern beyond one's tribe, race, class, and nation. King admonishes us that there comes a time to break silence, and also that we must be prepared to match actions with words by seeking out every creative means of protest possible.
That social change comes most meaningfully through nonviolent action. But they asked, and rightfully so, what about Vietnam? They asked if our own nation wasn't using massive doses of violence to solve its problems, to bring about the changes it wanted. Their question hit home, and I knew that I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed in the ghettos without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government.
But we want to give them a full disclosure. We want to tell these kids that you're not fighting for freedom and democracy around the world when you sign up for the military. I mean, you don't see these military recruiters in the suburban schools. You see these military recruiters coming to the inner city where there are very few options after graduation for these kids. And it's unfair, and it's wrong, and it's a racist system, and we need to fight against it.
While we fight for a more just global economy, we also need more immediate solutions to the problems we face locally. And one of the most urgent problems we face here in Chicago is the state budget crisis. The People's Lobby is part of a coalition of organizations from across the state seeking a just resolution to the budget crisis. We have a model budget called the People and Planet First budget. In support of this budget, we are organizing in the last half of May a march to Springfield. We are going to march from Chicago to Springfield.
And I am very inspired today to return to the southeast side of Chicago and to continue that struggle to unify the dispossessed of all colors, creeds, and circumstances in a new Poor People's Campaign, to create the, quote, new and unsettling force that Dr. King envisioned and for which he gave his life.
These kids were punished cruelly and unusually, and as a result of that, they're now adults in their 30s and 40s. One of them has been in jail for 26 straight years. So now, we cannot let this continue to happen. And we need your support on this. Can I have your support on this?
Each attack on the most marginalized communities in recent months has thankfully been accompanied by a call for resistance. The protests and the calls for actions have different topics, and yet each one is essentially the same. They are demands for respect for our community and for people to be valued solely for their humanity. And at Advancing Justice, we meet each day by searching for root causes to be clear about our purpose, by finding the now leaders and training the new leaders, and by simply showing up for others, to say that we have your back because our fates are linked. Because as the great Congressman John Lewis says, we may have come here on different ships, but we are all in the same boat. Thank you.